All right.
All right, one more.
Oh, okay. One more.
Oh
We got
wow,
one more?
he came prepared.
All right, cool.
I always do 2 or 3. You just ain't. Well, he got 40 of them. He ain't released. It's gonna be a whole such shit series
Playlist.
Yeah.
All right.
So
So
do the best of sucker shit one day.
as we always do at this time, sucker shit.
I was thinking,
Uh-oh.
and this one's actually apropos because my son's here,
Okay.
and it was a conversation we had.
Oh yeah.
You don't even know what I'm gonna say, but it's all right. So we were actually chilling last weekend. My daughter was in town, so we was all hanging out. You know, order some pizza, da 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 da. And you know, we just chilled, crack some jokes, da da da. I ain't gonna tell them that part. I ain't gonna embarrass you. Your sister ragging on your ass.
Hey man, she getting older.
She got you. So anyway, so he's leaving, and she's going into her room to go be a teenager because she don't want to hang out with me like that. She want to be on her phone. She just want to be around me.
Right.
So he's like, all right, I see you later, Pops, love you. She's like, all right, Daddy, I'm going to the room. Right?
Right.
That's the story. I'm thinking, that's it, right?
That's what I'm thinking.
So I was thinking about it. He didn't say, hey, JT, I'll holler at you later. And he say, James, I'm going to my room.
Oh,
You know why? Because I ain't on no first name basis with my kids.
that's right.
Well, see, because being a dad, you earn the respect of the title. It's like when Deion Sanders made that big fit about being called coach instead of prime time
That's right.
or Deion. Because you need to put some respect on the title.
Right.
But see, being a dad, the title was earned.
Yeah.
So you got to be the protector, right? You got to kill or be killed.
Right.
You got to provide,
Yes.
not just financially. You got to provide leadership. You got to provide emotional stability and balance. And the number one thing you provide is wisdom. And when you provide that wisdom, that means you actually have to be honest about the life you've led.
Right.
Right? So you do all that, and this nigga gonna call you Charles? I wish he would call me by my name. I'll slap his ass dehydrated. I will slap all the water out of him. Okay? You know what I mean? Hit you parched. So I don't understand these dudes that's on a first name basis with their kids. Hey man, they don't need another friend. They got school for that. They looking for a father. Okay? That's what I'm saying. You first name dads, you on some sucker shit.
Yes. Yes. I like that. I like that. So trigger. So what is a trigger? How's the term been used or misused?
Y'all the trigger generation.
Oh,
So yeah, so
he jumped right in it too.
He knows this shit.
yeah, so triggering is just what it's supposed to be. Is things out there that have a history of being offensive or things that are personal to you that you may not necessarily share with people. There are events, situations, phrases that can trigger those memories, those feelings, and bring out a negative reaction within you. That is what being triggered or triggering is. Now, where it gets misused is everyone replaces trigger for, because trigger is essentially, it should be tied to trauma. It should be tied to a deep pain. Not the motherfucker that just annoyed you. That's the difference. Like everyone wants to use that trigger word because it's very easy to understand because we know what triggering is, but y'all are using it for everything. And so it's starting to devalue when someone says, hey, that's a triggering experience for me. Because everything's a triggering experience for everybody right now. And it's hard to tiptoe and walk that line with people. So like, case in point, I I'm a recent college graduate, so I was always around different social settings, different debates and everything. And there were certain topics where the entire conversation was dominated by one group, because if you bring up something else, they would say, we can't go there because that is offensive to me, or I can't brace these certain topics. We can't go to a certain place where there could be healing there, but there's a wall being put up. And I understand, because there are a lot of things that people genuinely do. Like, you have sexual assault victims, you have all these other things where conversations can definitely bring up there, but that shit doesn't apply to the argument you got into yesterday. Like, you know what I mean? People just in general have an inkling to take things too far, and it goes back to that ego, that pride. We live in a generation where people can put that out there. And like you said, with that lack of accountability, you can put these words, that trigger word, and that wall goes right up. And I no longer have to hear what you're saying to me. When you can apologize, say, I'm sorry for triggering you, but listen to what I'm actually saying. I'm not trying to bring those feelings up. I'm trying to help you conquer those feelings. I'm trying to help you get past those. And you get those assholes that are genuinely trying to know what your buttons are and push them. But we got to really figure out what the line is with that.
A couple of things come to mind. Well, number one, I don't apologize for triggering nobody. But number two, words matter. How we use them matters, obviously. So, there's the clinical or the stated definition of trigger, like you said. Mm-hmm. But, there's, throughout history, there have been different words, trigger. It was associated with guns for most of the time, right? And so similarly, the trigger, right, activates the weapon. Well, that's what it's doing right now. Trigger is an activation of a weapon used against someone else because you have trauma or you have hurt or you have insecurity. So you don't want to address it. So let me address you because that button was pushed. What a trigger is actually is self-work that you need to do. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't apologize for triggering you, right? If you take a general conversation personally, that's your problem.
Okay.
Right? Well, I wasn't around you when you was 10 and your uncle smacked you. Like, why am I held responsible for it? If you 40 now, you had 30 years to clear that up. You know that, right? And maybe at 40 it's time for you to do so instead of being mad at the world. So maybe your trigger is the thing that's holding you back.
Right. So the question would arise to that would be, who are you to decide my timetable of healing?
I'm not deciding your timetable of healing, but who are you to try to dictate how I speak, how my way in the world, just because you feel uncomfortable? Mm-hmm. As Black folks in America, we were trained around other people's comfort. Mm-hmm. And now you want to dictate to me based on your comfort? So what, you my slave master now? Right? Because you feel powerless, you want to exert some power over me, right? So now every third person that says it, walking up the street or a conversation at this place or that place, they all got to shut up because you feel bad. That's one of the most narcissistic things you can do.
There you go. What you just said, that's what it is. It's a reclamation of power in one way or another, right? Yeah. And that's a big piece.
Faux?
Yeah. Faux reclamation. Yeah. Okay.
And not FO.
Yeah.
FAUX. Yeah. I know I took French.
Yeah. and
faux niggas. That means faux niggas. Or four people made a mistake.
Yes. The wild thing is how most people see triggers is bullshit.
Okay.
Not mine, but whether it's Brother Zoe Williams, got it from Jiddu Krishnamurti, that says, relationships are mirrors in classrooms. The mirror part is important because in relationships, when we get triggered, it's not about the other person. It's about us. Triggers allow us ways and they illuminate the places where we need to work. So they're a good thing, right? So when Emily comes through the house and she does some shit or she says some shit and I get triggered by it, I've learned in this work that I do, is like, let me examine that. What's bothering me about what she's doing or what she's saying? Where does that come from? I need to work on that because it's not about her. It's about me. So when people use the word, weaponize it, and we can't talk about that guy trigger, I get curious. I'm like, wonder where that shit come from, right? Because that's a place they need to work. It's not about the person who says anything, who does anything. It's about the person who's taking it a certain way. And so much of that shit has been weaponized, and we've seen it. You've seen the conversations. I've been in conversations with groups of men and women who was having, these relationship talks, these couple of thoughts. And I've dropped some data, and women has actually gone off on me.
You don't know my life.
Yeah.
It's like that's that from the CDC. They don't know you. From
the CDC.
We got that off of blackdemographics.com.
Right.
It doesn't say 75% of black people except for Michelle. Please.
Right. So I don't know how deep down a rabbit hole we can go with this, but it's just simple to me. It's like these are the things and the places where they illuminate opportunities for me to grow and evolve.
So let me give you. It just popped in my head because you was talking about Emily. That's my girl. But there's been a running joke for damn near 30 years between me and Emily and everybody, right? So Emily's Puerto Rican, and I always crack Mexican jokes and call her Mexican. And she used to get upset in the beginning, right? And I'm not Mexican. Yes, I know you're not Mexican, and you know you're not Mexican. That's why it's funny. Okay? Right? So, watch this. When she first got upset, right? I could have stopped. Oh, she's offended. Now, 30 years later, she laughs with me at the jokes.
Yes.
Because it's not offensive. It's just a joke, number one. But number two, and most importantly, if you know who you are and truly are comfortable with it, then it doesn't affect you anymore.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Somebody could sit right here and call me everything but a child of God. They say, oh, you a deadbeat dad, or you were ugly, you this, you that. I mean, certain light, I might, not be that handsome, okay? But I ain't ugly, and I've been a great father. So I don't have to defend myself. I know what I am.
Right.
Right? See, in life, you really are either the hammer or the nail. And I'm choosing to be the hammer. But our society is pushing people to be the nail all the time. They're in constant, on a constant journey to find the next victimizer. So they can claim victimhood. Right? And I'm sorry, man. I was raised to win. And victims don't win.
Right.
Victims get taken advantage of.
Oh, man. Okay. Last topic.
Shout out to Mexico.
She said, boy, that.
You know what I'm saying? Español, baby.
Español. Hey, listen, last topic.
That's my love language. They be like,
that's your love language?
They be like, what is it? Gifts.
Acts of service.
Acts of service with words, affirmation.
Affection.
Be like, nah, Español is mine.
Last topic. How much time we got, Dio?
20 minutes.
20 minutes. All right, cool. Plenty of time. Last topic is about vulnerability. So, what's the role of vulnerability, and what role does being vulnerability play? That's one. And how does vulnerability break or make relationships?
Vulnerability making breaks relationships, because at the end of the day, any human interaction with someone you're trying to build something with is all about vulnerability, right? It's how much of myself can I share with you? How far can I go? And will I be judged for going if I go all the way? Like, you know what I mean? Because I think people in general, we have a hard time being honest about the things we've done, about how we look at things, and about how we will approach certain situations. So to share that with somebody is very hard. And back to our conversations about triggering and stuff like that, like, there are some very sensitive topics to people, and there are some for some people, there are some questionable stuff that's been done in the past, and they'll think if I share this, if I'm honest with somebody, I'll get pushed away for it. So vulnerability is the most important part, but it's also the hardest part to achieve, because there are also just as many times of you found someone you thought you could be vulnerable to, and it's come back and bitten people in the ass, especially men. Men feel that way. We were taught, we are already taught as men, it's hard to share your emotions. It's hard to be vulnerable. It's hard to do that. And when you finally break away from that thinking and then try it out and it doesn't work, you can start back over from square one, or you can never try it again. And it's fucked up a lot of dudes.
So if you're not, if you're shying away from vulnerability, if you're actively stopping yourself from being vulnerable, does that mean that you're not being authentic?
I don't think so. As long as you're communicating where your line is with it. Like, I can give you my 80% and it's still 80% of all me. It's just that last 20%, there's a gate there. And it's still you. Like, that's still authentically you. It's just you gotta earn that last 20. So I think you can still be yourself, but it's not giving your complete self in a sense. You know what I mean? Like, I'm having a hard time putting it into words, really. Maybe you guys can probably help me out elaborating more. But it is like a duality, like a.
Well, I know why you're having a hard time. What you say?
It's like filling up a cup. So you just pouring a little bit, little by little.
There it is.
Okay.
There it is.
I know why you're struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a couple things. I'm not a fan of vulnerability, being vulnerable. I'm a fan of authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times people take it away from emotional space, take it to a physical space.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Let's do this as a foundation. What would the word vulnerable mean? Okay, well, if you're vulnerable in a physical state, that means you are about to get some pain or you are already hurt, right? Mm-hmm. Vulnerability doesn't speak to healing. Authenticity does, right? Say I was in a fight and I'm telling you the story about the fight and I'm being authentic and you see the scar, but the scar is sign that the healing had occurred. That's why I want to be authentic and not vulnerable. What people do with vulnerability a lot of times, it's no scars there. It's still an open wound because they haven't healed themselves. And you talk about that gate. Well, there's the problem. Because until you are 100% with yourself, you can't be 100% with someone else. And then you will never get 100% back.
Right.
That mirror is a mirror reflection of the 80%, your number that you gave. And you get frustrated because, oh, why you didn't share this? Why you didn't share? Well, that's her 20%. So you actually match. And you're not triggered or frustrated with her. The person you really are triggered and frustrated with is yourself because you got work to do.
So then would you say that vulnerability, at least on a personal level, is like the gateway to authenticity?
I think authenticity is the gateway to authenticity.
Okay.
Right? Because authenticity, if you want to use vulnerable as an aspect of it, fine. But sometimes authenticity is not about being vulnerable. Authenticity, it may be the opposite.
Okay.
Right? But you have to be true in every account. Right?
Right.
He constantly says over and over again, the only analysis
It's
is
self-analysis.
self-analysis. See, you done heard it a whole bunch of times.
Yeah.
He only got, like, he
You got a couple catchphrases.
No, you know what he is, man. He like, He like the rapper, the rap group that only had one hit. So when they come on stage, you know the song they gonna do, right? Right. He ain't got no catalog. He ain't no LL. You know. Rest in peace, Bismarck. You know he was gonna come out there and do Just a Friend.
Right. A bunch of features.
That's what this nigga do. Right. He do just. I'm gonna do the greatest hits. You know, you got what that he coming out with, right? But authenticity is priority number one. Right? Mm-hmm. And when I say authenticity, I don't mean lie to yourself. The most honest critic of yourself should be you. The most honest evaluator of yourself should be you. Right? Then you will attract and bring into your circle, not just the woman you with or the man you with. I'm talking about your friends. I'm talking about even people in your family. Right? It's amazing the comfort that people have surrounded themselves with to stay average. It's amazing how many yes men and yes women people surround themselves so they can stay stuck and be comfortable and be everybody else's fault. And then they'll sit around and talk about the same issue for 20 years and call it being vulnerable. No, you're being inauthentic.
Yes. And I like what you said. I layer authenticity as an aspect of vulnerability as an aspect of authenticity.
Okay.
As a pathway. Because the way I see vulnerability, it's letting your guard down. Right? So that gateway you talk about, that's vulnerability to me. Like letting it down and saying, you know what? I'm going to open myself up and say, I'm going to be who I am, authentic. Take it what may.
Right.
Right? To me, that's the vulnerability aspect of being authentic is, this is who I am. Okay. Right? Flaws and everything. And I'm willing to take the slings and arrows of who I am authentically to grow, to evolve, to be my best self, right? But if I'm hiding something, if I'm keeping something, man, it's hard to even follow that shit because you hit it on the nail. If I'm keeping and hiding those risky disclosures about who I am, about what I'm about, then I'm really just keeping it from the man in the mirror, right? So that's the way I see it. That vulnerability is a gateway to authenticity. It's like, how can you be authentically you without letting down that gateway?
That's what my ex-wife and ex-husband said. It's hard to follow me, nigga. Anyway, I'll tell you a quick story. We was at work this week, and my boy, shout out to Al, man, my coworker. Funny, man, Alpha. So we shooting shit, right? And he telling this story. He was like, we was talking vices and different things, right? I always say, like, I don't trust a man with no vices. He got to do something. I don't give a damn for shopping, gambling, drinking. He got to do something,
right?
Okay. I was about to say nose rings.
Hey, well, he got one.
Yeah, I know. That's what it is. So he said, my vice is Monster energy drink and AM/PM hot dogs, right? And he was like, I heard somewhere. Yeah, no, Al funny as hell. So he was like, I heard somewhere for every AM/PM hot dog you eat, it take 30 minutes off your life. He said, I'm set to die next week. So I said, you gonna die by weenie side?
Weenie side.
Weenie side. I said they're gonna have, he said on my casket at my funeral they're gonna have 2 AM/PM hot dogs next to us. So we laughing.
Man got
right?
taken out by a glizzy.
Yeah, the monster, right? Weenie side. So we laughing about that. What's my point? Well, that's what we doing right now. It's death by weenie side. That's what that just triggers and are vulnerable. You a big ass weenie. Because you won't be honest. You are committing death by weenie side.
Death by.
You deaf by Winnie
Yeah,
side.
just
niggas
put
on
the-
some sucker
just-
shit.
We gotta put this on a shirt or something. Like
when you open up your mouth, an AM PM hot dog flies out.
And on that note, hey, big ups to our special host, guest, visitor, shout out. Oh yeah, and frat. Big ups to my man CT.
Right, no problem. You know, people like, man, your son look just like you. Like he's supposed to. I mean, his
Yeah,
daddy.
yeah,
It's called DNA. It might be.
genetics is a
Hey,
thing,
listen,
y'all.
talk to your mama why you don't look like your daddy. You know, I'm saying, you know, you might find out your mama was for the streets.
She like Streetwood.
That's what I'm saying. Hey man, that's authenticity. How many people could face the fact that their mama was for the streets?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Hey, cause we on previous show we have said my grandmama was for the streets.
My grandma was too.
5 kids, 4 dudes.
And I love her. It was. I mean, she's still mine's still alive, but she ain't.
Yeah,
she ain't got no action right now. 91, but
Yeah, my
if she
grandma-
could, she would.
hey man,
I'll tell you right now, if she could, she would. How about can you?
hey man, great grandma no joke.
I got a mental picture of your grandma on the counter.
Yeah, when she jumped on the
Yeah,
counter.
yeah.
So no. How many people can handle that authenticity? Your grandma want to get laid, nigga.
By different dudes.
That's what I'm saying. All the time. You think she's sitting there watching Young and the Restless? She dreaming
Thinking
about.
about Victor Newman.
She thinking about dreaming about Deacon Freddie.
Trying to get beat down by Victor Newman. On that note,
Oh
hey man, big ups to Dio behind the boards. He actually came and said a couple of words. We're gonna get him on camera one day.
Looking like a young Navajo.
He gonna have his nose ring polished by then.
So yeah, thank you. Hey, listen, like, share, subscribe, put your notification button, hit that. But most importantly, leave your comments. We look at those comments, we comment on them, and we'll knock off another show just on some response on your comments. So we know people are sharing. We thank you for that. Big shout outs to everyone who supports the show. And we'll be back next week. All right. Peace.